Good morning. I'll call to order the Planning Commission hearing for January 12, 2017. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the clerk please call roll?
Commissioner Cowley?
Here.
Commissioner Onstott?
Here.
Chair Dukas?
Here.
Commissioner Ketzley?
Here.
And Commissioner Rodriguez?
Okay, next on the agenda is our annual meeting to elect the chair and vice chair and to set the schedule of hearings for the year 2017. So I hand the gavel over to the planning director.
Thank you, Chair Dukas. So first, I would just like to extend all of our staff's appreciation for your work over the last year, because it has been quite a challenging year, and you've always handled the chairperson role with such grace, and it's been a real privilege, and I think everybody here learns from you. So thank you for your service. I know being the chair can be challenging at some times. So with that said, I'd like to ask for nominations for the chair of the Planning Commission.
I'd like to nominate Steve Onstott.
And is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, and then so we'll call for the vote.
Okay.
Okay, well then, congratulations to you, Chair Onstott, and then it will be up to you to run the nominations for the vice chair.
The chair will accept nominations for vice chair of the planning.
I would like to nominate Richard Rodriguez. I'll second.
Moved and seconded.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. We should call Richard McClellan. He's the chair. Okay. The matter currently before us was a continued hearing on PL 150158. Public comments. I'm sorry. It's been a long time since I've had this stuff.
And
Now's the time set aside for comments for matters not on the agenda. I don't have any cards. I don't know if any cards were received. Does anybody wish to speak on a matter not listed on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move on.
So Chair Onstott, just briefly, let me check in to say, do you need to vote on the annual schedule? Does there need to be a vote on that? The annual schedule for the PC location, the start time and the days of the week is posted by staff?
Apparently, yes, by the look on our clerk. Is it, can we just incorporate by reference what we've been doing unless there's a change? You want
Right, so typically we say that the Planning Commission meets every Thursday, beginning at 8:30 a.m. as needed or as agendized. So you meet when there's items on the agenda, and when there's not, that you don't. But we reserve that time for every Thursday, beginning at 8:30 a.m. in this location, 800 South Victoria Avenue.
does the commission feel there's any need to change that schedule?
So can I say so moved?
Yes.
Second, someone?
Second.
Moved and seconded to continue the current schedule.
Okay, look it up here.
Is there anything else after that? Okay.
There's still time.
Big part?
There's still time.
Okay, this is a hearing, here on agenda item PL 150158. This was continued from December 1st, and I believe it's
Move to approve the minutes from December 5th.
I'll second.
It's okay. Okay. Yes.
Now then. Next item on the agenda is PL 150158, a continued hearing from December 1st on the conditional use permit for the construction of 64-bed residential care facility in the Minor Oaks area. I need a keeper, don't I? I'm assuming we have an additional staff support. We have new documentation submitted from staff. Is that correct, ma'am?
That's
Okay.
correct, Mr. Chair.
All right. Go ahead, sir.
For the record, my name is Matt Sauter with the Ventura County Planning Division. I'm the case planner on case number PL 150158. So for the benefit of anyone who wasn't here at the original hearing, we're going to repeat most of the information in the original documents and then discuss what was changed as requested by your commission, including additional information regarding specifically water resources and visual resources. So,
All right.
and we'll get underway. So the proposed project is located in the Miners Oaks area along, addressed as 203 East El Roblar Drive. So it's currently a vacant lot next to a church, residential development, and residential development. So the land use designation is CPD, or Commercial Plan Development. The general plan is existing community, and the Ojai Valley area plan is commercial. So the surrounding area, we have single-family dwellings and a vacant lot. On the east, a church. On the south, single-family dwellings, and on the west, single-family dwellings and some kind of mixed residential and commercial use along El Roblar. So this is the project site as it currently appears. It's a vacant lot on the south side of El Roblar. This is the church immediately to the east. This is the house to the south. This access way here will be important later. And these are residences to the north, on the north side of El Roblar. Previous planning division permits for the subject property include tract map 3154, which was recorded in 1985, which included the subject property along with 9 residential lots. And then LU 1285A, which was a conditional use permit for the Miners Oaks Village Shopping Center located on the subject property. Approved in 1989 to include 5 buildings totaling approximately 18,500 square feet with parking for 100 vehicles. However, it was never constructed and the permits expired. So today's request is to operate and maintain an assisted living facility that includes 4 residential structures of about 7,800 square feet apiece, which within each of those structures includes 14 studio units, 2 one-bedroom units, and common areas that include a living room, dining room, kitchen, salon, spa, and library. And then a single office structure that's approximately 600 square feet, which includes the reception, the director's office, multipurpose lounge, and a wellness center. So the exterior grounds of the facility are proposed to include a barbecue, walking paths, gardens, a swimming pool, and a spa, along with 32 space parking spot. Water services proposed to be provided by the Miners Oaks Water District and Casitas Municipal Water District, sewer service by the Ojai Valley Sanitary District, and access would be solely off of El Roblar Drive via a 20-foot wide driveway. So this is the proposed site plan that just depicts the general layout. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 structures, the main office, and then the facility itself would be fenced and gated, and entry would be through the main office here. So El Roblar on the north side with access through here. In the southeast corner of the property is an emergency access gate, which would be controlled by a Knox box. And then that access easement goes across the property to the south to Stockbridge Lane. So it's important to note that this entrance would not be for deliveries, visitors, employees. It's only for emergency access. All other entry and exit from the property is via this driveway onto El Roblar. So then this inset here gives you the outline of each of these 4 structures. They're effectively similar. And then this depicts the main office building. So the proposed elevations demonstrate that it has kind of an Andalusian Spanish style with faux bell tower, kind of arched gateway. There's one existing Coast Live oak tree on the property that would be replaced 2-to-1 as depicted in the proposed landscape plans. And then, so the environmental review of the document under CEQA was conducted. An initial study determined that there would be potentially significant but mitigable effects to water resources. So pursuant to the CEQA guidelines, a mitigated negative declaration has been prepared and identifies the project specific impacts to water resources, along with a mitigation measure to reduce the level of that impact to less than significant. So in addition to the environmental review of the project has to comply with General Plan Policy 1.3.2.4, which states that discretionary development shall not significantly impact the quantity or quality of water resources within watersheds, groundwater recharge areas, or groundwater basins. And then more specifically, because the project is located in the Ojai Valley Area Plan's jurisdiction, it has to comply with Area Plan Policy 4.2.2-1, which effectively states that any new water use has to retrofit existing plumbing fixtures or provide other means so as to not add any net increased demand on the existing water supply. So, and it states that this policy shall be applicable until such time as a groundwater basin study is completed and has found that available groundwater or other sources of water could adequately provide for cumulative demand without creating an overdraft. At this point in time, a groundwater basin study has not been completed, so therefore the first part of the condition is still active in this
Excuse me,
case.
sir. Pardon me. What is the status of the groundwater study?
I believe that there's been the Upper Ventura River Groundwater Management Agency has been established, but I'm not aware of their groundwater basin study status.
Do we have any idea when it would be complete?
I do not know.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, Commission. Kim Loeb, Groundwater Manager with the Ventura County Watershed Protection District. Under the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, Upper Ventura Groundwater Basin Groundwater Sustainability Agency has just formed. They've just had their first meeting, so they're doing some organizational duties and whatnot. At some point, they will be commissioning a groundwater sustainability plan, which is required under the Act. And we don't know at what time that will be. That it is a medium priority basin as it was designated by the state. So that plan is required by law to be completed by 2022. They can complete it earlier, but it has to be completed by 2022.
And the scope of the plan is what? My understanding is it's to determine the safe yield of the basins. Is that correct?
Well, it's now defined as sustainable yield, and there are 6 sustainability criteria that have to be identified. And so it's probably beyond our time here to get into too much weeds of that, but it's similar to what we used to call safe yield, but it's now a sustainable yield, and it's looking at specific undesirable results that can occur from over pumping. And as long as you're managing those in a reasonable way, then that's considered a sustainable yield. And that's all defined within the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act in the regulations.
And how is that plan implemented or supervised? Who has jurisdiction? Does a court have jurisdiction over the plan and the implementation and sanctions?
No, the Upper Ventura Groundwater Sustainability Agency has formed. It's a California Special District, and it has the authority under the state legislation. So, and it has members that include Ventura County and some of the water purveyors there, and also there's a board position for an environmental community representative as well as an ag representative. The county also has a board seat on there, as does the city of Ventura.
Do they have the authority to implement conservation matters or measures?
They generally have the authority to, or will have the authority under the plan to allocate extractions, and so they do have the. I'm not sure whether they would have the authority to actually require conservation or not, but they can certainly limit what the pumping is, and then conservation would be a measure to address the limited pumping. Or conservation's looked at. There's a number of ways of looking at new supplies of water, actual new water, or surface water in lieu of pumping, or conservation is generally looked at as a potential new source of water, and generally that is the most economical new source of water. If you can displace water that's being used elsewhere, then you are producing new water that can be used somewhere else.
So this isn't an adjudication of water rights.
It's not an adjudication of water rights. It is the stakeholders through public process under the auspices of the Groundwater Sustainability Agency will develop through a stakeholder process the allocation system which that basin feels is the most appropriate for managing their basin. The plan is then submitted to the California Department of Water Resources, which will review the plan at some point and determine whether it's adequate under the law
Thank
and
you, sir.
regulations.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right. Okay, so currently the first estimate of the amount of water used by the project is approximately 6.4 acre-feet per year. So the proposed mitigation for the use of water by the project and to ensure the effective net zero of the project is what we're referring to as a water offset plan that would be required for review and approval by the plan director prior to the issuance of zoning clearance for construction. And so following your comments at the original hearing, we've altered that condition somewhat to tighten it up and add additional requirements on the applicant. So I've included the entire revised condition here in legislative format. So from the original condition to now, so new text is underlined, strikeout is removed. So under the purpose, we sought to clarify that this is to mitigate potentially significant impacts to surface and groundwater to less than significant levels. Under the requirement of the initial water offset plan, instead of just the planning division, it will be the planning director who will be reviewing and approving their water offset plan prior to construction. So that we removed the citation of the 6.4 acre-feet of water per year or 5,714 gallons per day amount, and have put the burden of proof on the applicant to provide a total calculated water demand required to service the permitted use. So by being less specific, we are more stringent in requiring them to submit information and show their work as to how they arrived at the total water demand of the project to give us a more, a stronger feel for exactly how much they're going to use and to offset. Furthermore, we've restricted the water offset plan to the Upper Ventura River groundwater basin. And that's the area, or the groundwater basin that the project is located within. So that's where the impact would occur through groundwater use by the project. And then offsets being restricted to that area would ensure that benefits or the offset would occur within that groundwater basin. So we have not changed any of the requirements for retrofitting plumbing fixtures. These are the current from, believe the California Energy Commission's new standards for high efficiency fixtures. So, and then once again, we detailed that the calculated total water demand is in the submitted water offset plan within the Upper Ventura River groundwater basin. And one of your commissioners requested that there'd be additional kind of annual compliance review of the project. And so we've added that the permittee shall annually submit a report to the planning division summarizing the water use of the facility. And if the facility's water use for the year is greater than, so if we establish their water offset plan and their levels come in above that, they have to make up that gap with a revised water offset plan to fill that gap with additional offsets. And so, and that reporting will occur annually for 5 years. So the first 5 years of the life of the project. So the documentation. So we previously had just the water offset report and the water offset plan and the post-implementation offset report. We've added the annual water use report to this section. So that's the document that says how much water the project has used on an annual basis. And then the timing. So the permittee shall submit its annual water use report to the planning director for review and approval by March 15th for the 5 years following issuance of the first zoning clearance for use inauguration. And then under monitoring and reporting, we once again added that annual use report. So just to cover all our bases. So beyond water use, members of the public have expressed concern regarding the color of the structure and that it is white to fit the kind of Andalusian Spanish style. As evidenced by other structures in the Miners Oaks area like the Acacia Mansion. The applicant has expressed that they are okay with finding a more earth tone or neutral color than just straight white. That might be a little too reflective. And so we've added a condition for a color palette, earth tones or off-white palettes and non-reflective paints. The applicant has suggested they'd be willing to use a color called Swiss coffee. And then so they were required to include the color and the materials prior to their issuance of zoning clearance for construction on their building plans. So as we stated in the previous hearing, that your commission has to make a number of CUP findings in order to grant the permit. So the first one is that the proposed development is consistent with the intent and provisions of the general plan. So based on the information we provided in the original staff report and today, we've not found any consistencies between the proposed project and the general plan and the Ojai Valley Area Plan, and that the water offset plan would ensure that there's no net increase in water use associated with the project. Finding number 2, that the proposed development is compatible with the character of the surrounding legally established development. So as we stated in the first hearing, that Myers Oaks is characterized by diverse architectural styles that include a little bit of everything, and it's largely built out with other residential uses, and that there's the proposed project is unlikely to result in a change in land uses, and that with the additional condition for mitigating the white color of the structure, it would probably fit in better with the more earth tones of the Miners Oaks area. So that finding can be made. Finding number 3, that the proposed development would not be obnoxious or harmful or impair the utility of neighboring property. The project won't adversely affect air quality in the vicinity of the project. And with the new condition, we've worked to make it even less unsightly and visually incompatible with the neighborhood. And the project itself is not a noise generating use, as it's more similar to a residential structure than, say, a shopping center or anything like that. So it wouldn't create noise impacts. And so we did not find that any part of the project has been identified that would be obnoxious or harmful. And so this finding can be made. The proposed development would not be detrimental to the public interest, health, safety, and convenience or welfare. Through the mitigation of the updated water offset plan, as you have before you, and the project itself would not restrict or impair emergency response in the Miners Oaks area, and that it has appropriate emergency access. And so this finding can be made. And then fifth, the proposed development, if allowed by a conditional use permit, is compatible with existing and potential land uses. So as we stated previously, Myers Oaks has a diverse array of residential and commercial uses, especially along El Roblar, and that the design and residential use of the facility would be in character with the existing community. And so this finding can be made. So, and then finally, the proposed development would occur on a legal lot. The proposed project is located on a legal lot created by tract number 3154, as we stated previously. So this finding can be made. So as far as public notification, notice of the M&D and public review period were published in the Ventura County Star on October 12th of 2016, and all property owners within 300 feet were notified. The public review period for the CEQA documents ran between October 12th and November 1st, and the project was presented to the Ojai Valley Municipal Advisory Committee on October 17th of last year, which voted 4-1 to recommend approval of the proposed project. So, and then public notification of the first hearing on December 1st occurred to, once again, to property owners within 300 feet. And then as a continued hearing, this hearing was not publicly notified as required. Okay, and then so staff's recommended actions are to certify that the Planning Commission has reviewed and considered the staff report and all exhibits, including the proposed M&D and the updated water offset plan. Find, based on the whole of the record before the Planning Commission, including the initial study and any comments received, that upon implementation of the mitigation measures, there's no substantial evidence that the project will have a significant impact on the environment, and that the M&D reflects the Planning Commission's independent judgment and analysis. 3, adopt the M&D and the mitigation program. 4, make the required findings to grant a conditional use permit pursuant to the Ventura County non-coastal zoning ordinance. 5, grant the CUP, PL 150158, subject to its conditions of approval. And 6, specify that the clerk of the planning division is the custodian and that the county government center is the location of the documents and materials that constitute the record of proceedings. So, thank you. Do you have? Okay. Do you have any additional questions?
At this point in time, I'd like to call for disclosures from the commissioners. Commissioner Presley?
Only my original disclosure that I did drive by the location.
I have no disclosures.
Karen?
I have no disclosures other than my original that I did drive past the site. Thanks.
I do have a disclosure. I appeared at the hearing called by Supervisor Bennett on an emergency moratorium on well drilling in the Ojai Valley a week or so ago, and listened to the testimony and have a copy of his submission to the board that resulted in the passage of a moratorium on further well drilling until the basin is, or I'm not sure exactly what the language was until the study had been completed. I have that, and I will submit that document that I received as exhibit whatever we have here. Okay. But that's the only disclosure. May I ask staff, who do we have present to testify on this water issue? Besides yourself, sir.
Oh, yes. The general managers of Casitas Municipal Water District and Miners Oaks Water District are here today,
Oh, good.
along with county groundwater or watershed protection staff.
Good. I have some specific questions regarding the plan. Does anyone have questions they want to pose at this time? I would like an explanation of the plan. I understand, appreciate, this would require, at least I would assume, this would require a survey of every property receiving water in Miners Oaks municipal water, or sufficient number of them with enough use that would equate to the desired number of water. Is that correct? I mean, how do you do this?
So the starting point is for the applicant to clearly demonstrate exactly how much water they are going to use. And then if it is their prerogative to replace fixtures within individual residences, they would have to document the fixture that they're replacing. And so if it is a 5-gallon per flush toilet, they would count that as, and trade that out for a 1.2 gallon per flush toilet. They would have to demonstrate that what that difference would equate to over the course of a year. So it's going to be pretty granular.
Do we know the number of properties serviced by the municipal water company?
I believe if we were to refer to their existing water availability letter, and I'm sure they have that on file with the water districts.
Okay. All right, so they will have to solicit individual properties to determine what is in existence and then be prepared to tell you what they're going to do to remedy the issue or reduce the use for any number of properties.
That is correct.
Okay, now how do we verify their plan? Or do we?
Well, they're going to have to submit documentation of each replacement. That's what's required under the condition.
Okay, so, and it's their problem if property owners don't want to cooperate, I assume?
That's correct.
Okay,
They can't compel a property owner to.
okay. Can the water company compel people to retrofit?
I am unsure if the water company is empowered to do that.
Okay, well, we have someone here. In your submittal for today, you indicated, or staff indicated, that should they not meet the plan, that they'll have to submit an amended plan. That troubled me greatly, because I don't know how long that takes or what's required or what, if any, sanctions there are for failure to meet the plan. As I read the document, there's no sanctions and there's no time frame within which to submit an amended plan. Is that correct?
I believe the only time requirement we have currently in the condition is for the annual submittal of the water report. We could clarify the amount of time between finding that they have gone over their initial submittal and would have to document correction of that.
Well, I wouldn't want to have an open-ended situation. It would seem to me that it would be reasonable to require them to submit an amended plan within a reasonable period of time. And I don't know what that time frame is, but that's an observation that I have. Thank you, sir. Does anybody have any questions now? Madam Director, do you wish to call people, or do you want, how you would proceed?
I believe that they're here and have come voluntarily for questions. So I
Okay.
think Matt can introduce them, and they can come up individually.
Beg your pardon?
Cheat sheet. Yeah, tells you to open
Yes, you're right. At this point in time, we'll open the public hearing, and I would request that the representative from Miners Oaks Water Company come to this podium, please.
So,
Please give us your name and address, sir.
Hello, Commission. My name is Mike Hollabrands. I manage the Miners Oaks Water District. We're located at 202 West El Robar.
Mike, how do you spell your last name?
Holle, B as in boy, R-A-N, D as in David, S as in Sam.
Okay. Thank you for coming in today. I appreciate that.
Certainly.
Initially, I had an issue regarding the will serve letter that is attached to the moving documents here. It is entitled will serve letter, but the last line of the will serve letter says this is not a will serve letter. Could you explain to me what we are dealing with there?
Well, it's a conditional will serve letter based on at the time, fees to be paid to Casitas for the water allocation.
And this, when was that granted? Do you recall?
I don't have a copy of it with me, but it was a few months ago.
Okay, all right, fine. I have questions. I need a general response from you. The background in which we're operating, which has caused me concern, is the fact that we've had this 5 or 6 year drought. We're told that you have 5 wells which are dry. We've told that you're in a stage 3 drought, that you get your water from Casitas, and they're down 35%, looking at 30. And I saw some documentation submitted by Mr. Bennett that Casitas may run out of water in 4 years. And all that causes me a great deal of concern, and perhaps you can relieve that concern. In addition, there's no state water or other water readily available. And that causes me a great deal of concern in approving a 64-unit residential unit or development, even though we have this offset plan. And I just want to know how comfortable Miners Oaks Mutual Water Company is with that situation. And what, if anything, you're prepared to do to monitor that situation or ensure that they do, in fact, do net zero. Because I think the plan is very difficult to implement and to monitor. You have some general comments on that, sir?
Well, obviously, I can't speak for Casitas. Representatives here.
Yes.
So, and I can't look into the future on what Mother Nature has in store for us, whether it's further drought, whether it's what's happening up north right now with flood conditions. We don't know. We trust and believe that the lake is being managed appropriately and it's running according to plan. And it's doing exactly what it was designed to do, and that's to supplement us when our wells go dry.
Right.
That
How
was-
long have your wells been dry?
We have been on Casitas since July,
Okay.
and we are preparing to move off of Casitas now.
And because of the current rains?
That's correct.
Does your basin recharge that quickly?
Our basin recharges very quickly.
Okay.
It's
Well,
very flashy.
That's good to know. Okay. How many properties does Miners Oaks service?
We serve approximately 4,200 people through 1,286 connections.
1,286 connections. Okay. I guess I'm looking for a sense from the water company as to their opinion as to whether or not a plan like this could or would be successful or cause you further problems.
We don't
And that-
believe
Go ahead, sir, I'm sorry.
we don't believe that it would cause us further problems, but we're also not a land use authority, so
Right,
that decision is your burden, I'm afraid.
I understand. Does anybody have any questions of this gentleman? No? Thank you, sir, appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Could we have the representative from Casitas, please? Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Could we have your name and address, please?
Yes. My name is Stephen E. Wickstrom.
Stephen, would you spell your last name?
Wickstrum. My
Thank you,
place
sir.
of business at Casitas Municipal Water District is 1055 North Ventura Avenue in Oakview, California.
Okay. Well, you obviously heard the questions directed to
Yes.
Miners Oaks, and I have the same concerns, and since you are the purveyor supplying water to Miners Oaks, I have seen documentation that you're at 35% of capacity. Is that about correct?
That's correct.
And that you're looking at possibly 30% next year?
Well, depending on this winter, I may be looking at 50% too.
That's true. That's true. I will agree to that.
One thing I would add that I think leading to one of your questions regarding Miners Oaks and the water service in that area that didn't get answered was the point that Miners Oaks really hasn't gotten onto Casitas until just this past 2 years.
Okay.
And because of their because we're really starting to experience a drought that is probably longer than what we would have otherwise operated by, but the groundwater conditions in that upper Ventura River generally get refreshed very quickly. And I've been with the district 33 years, and I think the only other time I can think of Miners Oaks getting on to Casitas historically over 56 years was during the 1985 fires, when the system got stretched because everybody was sprinkling their roofs to make sure embers didn't get into their area. Otherwise, that system in the upper area does quite well with refreshing and bringing water into the Miners Oaks system.
That's good to know. I received a copy of some documentation submitted by Supervisor Bennett at a recent hearing, which indicated that it's possible, assuming this drought continued, that your ability to supply water could be curtailed significantly, if not completely, in 4 years. Is that correct?
If we have absolutely no rainfall, that is the way that the lake would work. It would go dry given that kind of scenario where there's no rainfall. The other thing that we have done over the last few years is to implement our water efficiency and allocation program, which begins to cut back water use and cause people to conserve water.
Is this the Stage 3 drought that we've heard about?
That's what we're in right now.
And what does that do exactly, sir? What do they have to cut back? What percentage, or how does that work?
Right now, we're experiencing about a 40% cutback in general. We've asked for 30%, yes. We would normally experience probably 24,000 acre-feet of water coming out of Lake Casitas in a 5-year drought period. We're seeing 14,000 acre-feet coming out of Lake Casitas. But given if we take that 14,000 acre-feet out every year, we give on evaporation of the lake, approximately 4 years it would go dry if there was no rainfall. So worst case scenario is what that is.
And you're able to monitor the use, I assume, by your billing process and metering. Is that correct?
Yes. And I think that was another question that you had led on to that I think you need to be informed about, in that the monitoring of a project like this could be very straightforward. And part of it is finding those areas that you have meters to, that you are applying these conservation measures to, and monitoring those meters, providing report to staff without names, but the actual performance of those net zero applications compared to how this particular project is performing.
Well, I was going to get there, but anyway. No, I appreciate that, and that takes a lot of the guesswork and the hard work out of this.
There shouldn't be any guesswork.
But I would assume then that Miners Oaks would have the same billing process, metering process, and so that if in terms of submitting a plan, they could submit independent records from the water company, I assume, to the county to monitor it.
Absolutely. We have done projects like this, and I like the idea of net zero. We have faced other projects that have actually come to you all with a CUP, and what we saw were projects that were, quite frankly, over what we had allocated them as a water supply. So the terms we gave them, until you get your water supply, your water usage down to what we think you ought to be at, we're not going to issue you a Wilson-Blair for conditional use permit, as one example.
Okay.
Another example is trying to find those areas that help with the water supply. We did one, for instance, at Nordhoff High School. I would coach there for a while and noticed the new turf and what they were doing, and just a simple application of irrigation timers reduced that watering about 25 acre-feet a year, which was a savings of about $35,000 a year to the school district, enough to pay for maybe part of a teacher, if not a full teacher. So those are things that have been going on, can go on, and I think this is a good application of net zero. It's just a challenge to find the net zeros, and I think one of the other questions that you raised was compelling people to do it. And I think in today's climate and water prices going up, I think we have a lot of willing participants that are looking at how to do it, particularly in the Ojai Valley and the Ventura River area.
Do you have the ability at Casitas to compel retrofitting? Or you just, or do you handle it through, I know. This is ugly and no one wants to look at it, but we've got to look at it. Do you have what do you do? Just declare cutbacks and leave it to them to deal with it? How does that 30% cutback, 40% work?
Well, part of it is through pricing. The other part of it is we have been actively involved, particularly in the last 10 years, with programs to provide opportunities for retrofits through grant funding, through our funding, to do things like high-efficiency washing machines, toilet retrofits, and offer those to the community free of charge. So those have been going on for quite some time.
Okay. Getting out your crystal ball, if Mother Nature doesn't cooperate and this drought continues on, are there other sources of state water, other water, desal, that may be brought online to solve this problem?
Yes, last night our board approved participating, which I was very glad to hear, participating with the City of Ventura and Callejas and United Water Conservation District to begin to look at, which is a terrific opportunity we didn't have in 1992, of bringing water through metropolitan Callejas into Ventura and potentially into the Casitas District. So that is one that we're moving on right now. The other one is one that we're very excited about, is looking into formations in the local area that are untapped, that potentially have quite a bit of water in them. That's the hard part, is trying to find who hasn't tapped it, what environmental aspect would not be impacted by it to be able to bring that water to a public use. And we think we found one. So we're moving on that one currently.
Wouldn't be the Sulphur Mountain area, would it?
Oh, no.
No?
No. We're trying to stay away from sulfur particularly, or oil. No, we've got some other areas that are, I would call it, much cleaner water.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate your
You're
testimony.
Good to see you.
It's a difficult situation, and no one likes the potential ramifications. But I was concerned and still am concerned about this. I do feel better about the ability to monitor the program, since we'll be able to get the primary information from the water companies themselves. It makes it easier on the applicant. It makes it easy on staff. Thank you, sir.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
your time. Kim, do we have any other individuals that you'd like to hear from or think we should hear from? I'm going to get to that.
Yeah. You might want to hear from the applicants and the
Well,
applicants'
I'm going to go there. I
representatives.
just wondered if you had any other experts we could release. And
Unless you have any other questions for the Watershed Protection District.
I don't know. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. I appreciate you coming, sirs. You're released if you'd like to leave. Okay. I don't have any speaker cards, by the way, from anybody, do we? Oh, I'm sorry. That came when I was on. Does the applicant wish to address the commission?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, I would.
Come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, commissioners, staff. I want to, we went through this last month, but I thought it was still worth mentioning a few of the things about the projects and the benefits of it. As you may or may not know, the segment of our population that's growing the fastest is those of us, or our seniors over 85 years old, is by far the fastest growing. And that hasn't taken into account the baby boom generation that's coming on, which the Stanford Center on Aging refers to as a tsunami of aging population that we're going to be facing in the very near future. And one of the other things, too, I think it's important to note is that Ventura County has a higher median age than the median age of the state of California, and Ojai has a higher median age than Ventura County. So Ojai has become a retirement type community, and we're seeing a lot of aging in place there, and there's not a lot of opportunities for seniors that need assistance to remain there in Ojai, because in my survey, all of the existing assisted living facilities are full with a waiting list. We have spent several years researching and designing this project, and I think we've come up with something that allows our residents to live in a really home-like environment and still receive the assistance that they need as they age. And not only that, we've spent over 2 years working with staff on this specific project and on how to develop it and within the neighborhood. And our goal really is to not only provide years to our residents' lives, but life to their years, to give them the opportunities to live a full life as they age. And the location that we have, as we saw, is, you know, we're close to services and shopping, especially services that our elderly would need within the community. And also, Ojai is unique in a lot of ways that it's very senior friendly. And we are located with a trolley stop right adjacent to our project. So not only with our own transportation that we'll provide for the residents, but with the trolley, it's easy for them to get to all areas, the Ojai Valley, to take into account the film society that we have, the vibrant arts community, the community theater that's available. I mean, it's really a wonderful place for seniors to live. But past that, based on our last meeting, I felt like there was really consensus that it's a good project, that it's needed, that it serves a need within the community. But of course, the issue that we're discussing today mainly is water. The county has, within its specific plan for Ojai, has imposed this net zero water requirement. And we've belabored that a little bit, but it requires that we have no net increase in use in that area. And one of your questions is this doable? Well, we can tell you from our own experience that it is can be successfully implemented. And my partner and the applicant, Mark Judson, has actually done such in Carpinteria, where they had the same imposition of a net zero water requirement, and they were able to implement it, verify it, and manage it, just as what we would be required to do within the Ojai Valley. And we also have our water engineer here, Lou Nagy, who would be doing the calculations for us and helping us with the implementation. So I thought, you know, he's a good expert if you have questions on how this is done. But kind of in a nutshell, we would rely on our water engineer to calculate our water use at the property based on the fixtures we have, the people, the frequency of use, et cetera. And then the onus is on us to go out and find an offset within the community, or specifically within that watershed district, to make that net zero. On the commission's request, that's been asked that we, you know, verify that annually for 5 years. And I think, as the managers have pointed out of the water districts, that information is readily available. I mean, our metering is available, and where we would implement the offsets, it would be easy to verify. If we say, hey, we're going to offset 1,000 gallons at this location, are we actually achieving that 1,000-gallon reduction? And so that's still on us to implement that and manage that and maintain that. And as I said, that is doable. We have already gone out. We've spoken with the school district on multiple occasions. We've gone with the school district and to their facilities within that watershed district to say, what can we do within your school to reduce water use? And the reason we looked at the public schools is we felt like that was the biggest public benefit. In that, you know, as taxpayers, we're helping to pay for those bills at the school for water. If we can offset their water use, cut their cost, just as Mr. Wickstrom pointed out, they were able to reduce the use of, just by installing timers at the high school, they cut the water use at that location by 4 times what we're projected to use. So we think there's really some great opportunities within the school districts. With our own survey, there's a lot of old fixtures there, old urinals, old toilets, you know, sinks that are, you know, don't have restrictions on how much the water flows. And also, because of the shrinking school-age population, many of the schools have a tremendous amount of turf, more than they need. And so the school district is interested in us, you know, doing some turf removal at some of the schools, replanting that with drought-tolerant or low water use type of plants, because they just don't have the population where they need 5 acres of turf or 4 acres of turf out there. They can get along with 3 acres of turf that would be appropriate for that size school. So with that said, I mean, this net zero requirement that we have, as staff has pointed out, that's on us. The onus is on us to have a net zero effect on the water use in the basin. And so by definition, we would have no impact on water use in the basin based on that requirement. We can't even get our zone clearance until we have an approved plan and an approved, not only an implementation plan, and we can't get our final certificate of occupancy until we have completed that plan to the satisfaction of the planning director that it's been achieved. So with that in mind, I think given the fact that this project serves a current and really a growing need within the community, and that we will have no impact on water use within the watershed, we respectfully request that you approve the project. But Mr. Nagy is here if you have some specific questions on how the implementation would work, how he has done it in the past. Yeah, I'm certain he would be willing to answer those questions.
Thank you.
And I'm certain to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from the commission? I have one question.
Sure.
Most of my questions have been answered. The provisions for the plan and, well, if you fail to meet the plan, there is a requirement that you do an amended plan, but there's no time frame within which that needs to be done. Would you be amenable to work at a reasonable period of time with county staff?
We certainly would be. I mean, I think there's, we could certainly come up with a reasonable reporting time, whether that's a little bit going to be dependent on when we get that last bill, but I think we would be certainly agreeable to, show our water use 30 days after the end of the calendar year if we're doing it on a calendar year.
Well, what I'm saying is if you don't meet your plan.
Right, if we don't meet our plan and some reasonable implementation time.
Right.
That we're certainly amenable to that. I mean,
would staff have a problem working that out? No, okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Is there anyone else? I don't know that we need Mr. Nagy, who I'm well
Okay.
familiar with. Is there anyone else who wants to speak in favor of the project?
Thank you.
Okay, seeing none. Individuals in opposition. I think I have a card or two. Please come up. It says opposition. Good morning,
Good
sir.
day.
Name and address, please.
Bill Jones. I live on Canterbury, adjacent to this property.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Okay, well, I thank you again for hearing me, and I thank the planning department for being more descriptive in their definition on this net zero. I do have some questions, though, about this net zero, how they're going to meet it. Because according to the plan of the planning department, it has to be within the Miners Oaks area, and the developers plan on going outside that area to do his offset.
Well, that's a good question. Why don't we just stop right there? Are we
Okay.
talking about the Miners Oaks Municipal Water Service Area? Are we talking about a particular upper Ventura River Basin? What are we talking about?
As defined in the condition as written right now for the water offset plan, we've restricted it to the upper Ventura River groundwater basin.
I don't suppose we have anything that shows that territory, do we? No?
We could find.
That
a
would
document.
include, I assume, all of the, I would hope, all of Miners Oaks Municipal Water Company service area.
I believe they mostly overlap. There may be some parts that, yes.
Well, the hope was obviously the reach that we are dealing with that particular area. Can you represent to us that it's 80, 90%, something like that?
The general manager.
Oh,
It covers the Miners Oaks area, sir.
thank you. All right, go ahead, sir.
Okay, well, here in their memorandum, it says, project will be mitigated, its contribution water demand in the vicinity of Miners Oaks. It says that right here.
Right.
Okay, not the water basin, though. That's a bigger area. So I'd like to know which one it is.
You would like some definitional approach to this that limits it or speaks to the actual location.
Okay.
I don't think that's an unreasonable request. Anyway, go ahead, sir.
And the other thing I was talking about was going outside of this area. there was talk about going over to Matilla Hall Junior High to do offset. That's in a different water basin.
Well, my understanding what's supposed to happen is it's within whatever particular basin that
Okay.
the municipal water company serves in. Am I correct? Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to be clear in the memo, because in the memo, what you're reading from, right, it's the January 5th memo to the Planning Commission.
It's the one
And-
Matt
and
sent
that's-
me.
And what the sentence that you're reading from is from the background information, like,
Correct.
we're going to ensure this contribution to water demand in the vicinity of Miners Oaks. And then you go back and you get very specific, the condition gets very specific in the water offset plan, condition 26, and this is what will be addressed. And that is where it talks about the upper Ventura groundwater basin, and that's what the commission was concerned about the last time we met in
Right.
December, and we added that specific language in there.
Does
It
that
sounds like
satisfy,
two different things.
does that satisfy you, sir? We've identified it,
Okay.
yes.
Very good. Okay. And then there's talk about removing sod. If we go into stage 4, people should not be watering sod, so how would that count to the net zero?
Well, I think you're talking about apples and oranges.
I am.
If there is a required reduction, the individual property owners, as I understand it, would be required to reduce their water use.
Right.
That would be within their discretion to stop watering lawns, I assume, but somehow they're going to have to figure it out.
Well, if it's not being watered to start with, you're going to say, okay, I'm taking that out.
Well, they have to, if it's not being watered now, I doubt if it would figure in the computation.
Okay, very good. Very good. I can live with that. And we have been taking reductions for the last few years. When this comes online, will those past reductions apply to this and future ones?
I assume what would happen is you'll reduce to a certain level based on prior actions, and then either the water company, Casitas, or someone tells you you're going to have to cut back a certain additional percentage, and it'll be your problem to do that.
That's why I don't know.
Well, I don't know how else they would do it.
Well, the water company would have to address this. Are they going to do that?
Well, address it how? They're loath
Are they
to
gonna
tell you
apply
you
the-
can't, yeah, they're loath to take away your water completely, but they're probably prepared to reduce the amount you're entitled to receive. I don't know how that works, sir.
I don't either. That's why I was
The
hoping the water
representatives
company.
of both water companies are here. You might want to chat with them. That's beyond the scope of what we're talking about today.
Okay, very good. Okay. Okay, well, I have a document here from the Myers Oaks Water Company stating that we're still 100% on Casitas water. This was dated 12/31. And that stage 4 is imminent. Okay?
Yes,
So
I know.
conditions are going to get worse, not better, evidently.
It's,
Well, there was talk, about maybe the lake going up to 50%. I don't see that happening in 1 year.
there's no doubt there's a possibility and possibly a probability, if you look at the last 5 years, of further reductions.
At the last meeting, the water level on the lake was 35.4. Today, it's 35.2 after the rains. So it's declining, even with the rains.
Well, one of the problems I have with this project is you would think, if things were as bad as they appear to be, that people would be, what's the word? People would be interested in reducing their water use by whatever means necessary. And it's something we cannot solve here today, sir.
Okay. Casitas water, by the state conservation standards summary of 12/22/26, Casitas had done 10.9%, as compared to other cities and purveyors that have done from a 17 to 27% savings. So Casitas is doing one of their worst jobs, it appears, by this.
I think if you have a question, you should attend the next board meeting of Casitas Mutual Water Company.
Well, they're giving out water like it's not going down, so okay. I don't understand how they can give out another, 6.5 acre feet of water by one of their own. Let me see here. One of their own resolutions, number 16. It says, prior to July 1st, 2016, bring forward to the Board of Directors recommendation, consider moratorium on controlled issuance of new water service connections and allocations. That's by their own direction.
When,
And they're giving out
What-
new allocations.
may I ask you, when is that dated, what you just read?
It was signed on 27 April 2016.
Okay, maybe we can have a follow-up question directed to the director.
Well, it's under their own direction, and they're not, okay.
Right, maybe we can follow up with that.
Okay, very good. Let's see. Water. Okay, at the, let's see here. Drought Summit meeting, 22 September 2016, a gentleman from Casitas Water there was talking about if we're looking at the bottom of the barrel here. If we start looking at that, we could be in dire straits. People may start suffering. He also talks about we may have the need to pump water out of the lake and into the intakes, where it would be a reduced amount. And this could have an impact on health and safety. Then I was looking at their the developer's water report. Water efficiency and allocation, oh no, that's it, I'm sorry. Oh, here it is. Casitas Municipal Water District Water Efficiency and Allocation Program. It talks about the stages. Stage 1 says no reduction, but they started us off with a new baseline that was 20% less than 89 use. Okay? Stage 2 is a 20% reduction. Stage 3 is a 30%. All these are from stage 1, so they're cumulative.
Yes.
Okay. So if we go into stage 4, that will be 40% off the stage 1 that's already at a 20% reduction. I just wanted you to have that information.
It's a very frightening scenario, sir. It truly is. That's why we're focusing on it.
It is, and I'm concerned about it, and everybody's saying what happened in the past, but we need to be looking at the future. I'm sorry, I got so many documents here. Oh. Okay. Okay, in their water study, the developer has assigned to this water company, their data is referring back 10 years. They're not using current data to come up with their numbers to support this. I don't understand that. Why aren't they using current data?
Well, they're going to have to supply the county of Ventura with current data regarding the amount of water to be used in the project. That will have to satisfy the county of Ventura.
Well, I would think they'd be using current data, the last 10 years, not 10 years old. Is that right?
Well, I'm not sure I understand the question, but I do know that whatever appliances that are going to be used and installed, whatever water services are going to have to be measured and determined to find out what the total acre feet or whatever the number is that to be presented to the county, and the county is going to verify it somehow.
So I'll deal with the planning department on this, and when they get their plan,
I would assume so,
and see if
yes.
they're using updated data, okay, or old data, okay. Because this doesn't even make any sense to me. They have all these requirements for safety and fire flow, and they're using old data to support this project. This is an engineering, water engineering company. So, I don't know why they did that.
Well, the plan will be submitted to the county of Ventura, to the planning director under the new scheme. I'm assuming that plan will be available to the residents of Miners Oaks to review as a matter of public record.
Good.
So you'll have an opportunity to review it.
I will,
And
okay.
take the matter up with the planning director.
Very good, very good. And if nothing else, maybe this project should be postponed till the spring to see what the water levels are. Or maybe it should be reduced in size from 64 to 42 units to reduce the requirements. I wouldn't mind seeing some of these set aside for low income. I know some of the people in Miners Oaks could use this. But that's all I have to say then. I thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. I
Thank
appreciate
you
it.
very much.
Are there any other speakers in opposition to the project? Are there any questions of the commission of any of the individuals? Go ahead, Nora.
I was wondering if we could get the engineer for the applicant to come forward and answer the question about the data being 10 years old and how that figures. And then after him, I was wondering if we could also get the director from Casitas to come back up and answer the previous speaker's concerns regarding the moratorium.
Good morning, young man.
Yes, sir. I thought you were retired.
Not from
This
this.
doesn't look like retirement to me.
Please state your name and address, Lou.
Lou Nagy, 234 Channel Heights Court, Ventura, California.
There was an issue raised by the previous speaker that the data that is being used in order to craft this plan is 10 years old. Could you elaborate on that?
I can't because we have not compiled anything for the project yet. So the report, maybe I could take a look at that.
Well, while you're doing that, maybe we could call the director of Casitas back and ask him to respond to the moratorium.
Could you come up, sir, while they're doing that? You guys step aside for a second, would you please?
Yeah, sure.
Lou? Yeah.
Steve Wickstrom again. Actually, I'm not a director. I'm the general manager at Casitas.
I apologize. I apologize.
That's okay.
Is that a promotion or
elevation for a
demotion?
moment, I guess.
Did I promote you or demote you?
That's all right.
Okay.
Yes, there is not a moratorium currently at Casitas Municipal Water District. In April, we had a discussion as to whether to affect a moratorium or to affect a more of a controlled issuance of water allocations for any applicants that come in. The decision was made to allow us a 10 acre foot per year allowance. Quite frankly, if we issue out 1 meter a year, I'm very surprised in our service area. There's not growth up in that area, and so, you know, rather than going through the moratorium, and I'm just going to tell you, I can claim I lived through a moratorium in 1989 through 92. It was not a fun scenario. A lot of chaos ensues when you do a moratorium. In a moratorium, the understanding of a moratorium is that it's temporary. It's our responsibility to find water in a variety of different ways to get ourselves out of a moratorium. So what we're doing right now is saying in a controlled fashion, 10 acre feet a year, it could be reduced. It could go to a moratorium at any point. But we're not seeing a rush to put in facilities in our service area.
And then just to be clear, this is no net increase, so this wouldn't feed into the 10 at all.
That wouldn't feed into the 10 at all, which is even a better process in my viewpoint to make the balance occur and to monitor that balance. I'm very happy to hear that the county would be involved in monitoring that balance. So I think it's a good, appropriate plan, and it would help with projects such as this that are few and far between in the area that would occur.
Okay, and I'm sorry that you were busy and you didn't hear this, but maybe you can listen to it online.
I just wanted to say, but a moratorium would prohibit any new meters, which would prohibit any development. So the net zero offset plan is certainly more desirable than going to a net zero. I mean,
And-
a moratorium.
Yes, yes. And I look at this in a broader and larger picture than just Miners Oaks, because what is happening right now is Miners Oaks is relying on Casitas temporarily, and they will be back on their system, but we're there as a backup supply. So anywhere where we can help in this entire area of the Western Ventura County to do a net zero, to do things that are a balance, the better off the community is with this water supply. And that's doing the net zero is really trying to find those areas where there's help needed and can make changes that perhaps weren't implemented when we originally put facilities in, perhaps. So I think it's a good process and shouldn't impact at all what we're talking about as far as the 10 acre feet that Casitas put out there, rather than going to a moratorium and trying to live through that again. Okay? I just, one other aspect, I know bits and pieces, and we took some heat in the press, and we kind of, in our own district, we think we've been struggling with the state quite a bit on water conservation measures and the way they've implemented state measures at the State Water Resource Control Board. But, you know, reason why our numbers do not look good is that they have, at a staff level, prohibited us from eliminating agricultural water use from being submitted in with our urban water use. Our agricultural water use is approximately 60% of our urban use. Our urban use is actually about 10%. So when you throw water conservation measures in there and you've got an agricultural community that's trying to keep viable, you don't see the reductions that you would see from a straight urban context. Our straight urban context is anywhere between 35 to 40% reduction over the last 2 years, which we are telling our constituents that on a continuous basis through our newsletters. But unfortunately, we have to put that big ag lump in there, and ag is now having to conserve 20%, and are going to be struggling with that. So sometimes the numbers hit the AP press, and they don't quite tell all the facts and all the reasons why that's there. So, okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Could we get Mr. Nagy back? Could we get Mr. Nagy back?
Yeah. Lou, you want to come up?
The report that the gentleman has is a report that we did for Miners Oaks Water, specifically not having anything to do with this project. And it cited some data from base period that we were analyzing the capability of the Miners Oaks system. And it was older data, so it actually shows more capability than if we used data from the past 5 years, for instance. Does everybody understand that? And it's the report is not a report it's the water availability analysis technical report that needs to be done. Each water purveyor in the county needs to compile in order to tell whether or not they have ability to serve additional conditions or additional services with average or normal, quotes, normal conditions. So that's where it's sort of a disconnect. We haven't done anything project specific, and using the old, we're not going to be using the data that's in that report. There's not a place for that data in the study that we're going to be doing for the Oval project. Hopefully that makes sense.
So, to be clear, you haven't started the report, so you're not using 10-year-old data. You're going to be using whatever data is available to you when you start this report.
Yeah, and there's not a place for the data that it isn't analyzing what was being analyzed where that quote older data was in the other report. It doesn't it's apples and oranges, like Steve likes to say.
Well, he's bananas.
Thank you, sir. Any
Thank
more
you.
questions? Does the applicant wish to say anything further? Good morning, sir. Name and address, please.
Chair, Commissioners, I'm Mark Judson, the applicant, 3911 North Ventura Avenue. I think we've given this thing a pretty good look. Staff has done an exceptional job over the last couple of years of working together with them. We think we've come up with probably the best program that we can come to. We've included things in our project, gray water systems, low volume fixtures, water ground. We're putting our rainwater back into the ground percolation. And all of this is an outgrowth of what we've worked with of staff and with our consultants. And if you approve this project, we embark upon the next phase, which is bringing Mr. Nagy to bear. And Mr. Nagy and I have worked for many, many years together. I think I was a project manager for a company when we were in Carpinteria, and we did a very similar program where we ended up replacing fixtures in all of the schools up in Carpinteria. Successful. Completely offset the water that we used. It was a 30 townhome project that we did up there. It was monitored. It worked. And Mr. Nagy was completely capable of accomplishing that there. We have no doubt that he's capable of accomplishing the numbers that we need here. And we believe that we're capable of making this happen. We believe that we're providing a product that's needed in Ojai, that is maybe a little different than the norm that you would see for assisted living. We care about our residents that are going to be there. We want that to be home for them. We want this to be comfortable. And we've gone years, like Mr. Wyrick said, of designing and concepts and changing and traveling around the country looking at what makes this work. How does this best for our residents there? We think we've accomplished it. We're ready to put it to the test. I appreciate the fact that you've looked so hard at this, Chair Onstadt. You've asked a lot of really great questions. We appreciate that.
It's the farmer in me.
Well, farmers are the great people of this earth, so we appreciate that. We know that you've got a lot of experience in this. You've got a lot of knowledge. And you've asked a lot of good questions, and we've brought the people who have answers. And so we hope that you have seen that we're making the effort. I don't believe that there'll be anything in Ojai Valley that will have spent as much time making the environmental aspects of our project viable and good for the community. We want to be good citizens of the community. We absolutely do. And if I thought for a minute that we were damaging the Ojai Valley, damaging the people of the Ojai Valley, we wouldn't be doing this. I hate to say it, but I'm the guy that has the bucket in my shower to catch rainwater or catch the water before it warms up. So we consider those things. We think about those things, and we think that that's important. We think that our neighbors are important. We certainly don't want to offend our neighbors. We want to be good neighbors with them. We're going to share fence lines with people. And, you can't afford to go into a community and just run roughshod. It just doesn't work anymore. Wouldn't want to do it anyway. So I hope you'll look at this project seriously. I think it's, like I said before, I think it's important for the area. It's important for the community, and it's important for us going forward. I've always said I hope I get it done before I need one of the places there. Sometimes it didn't seem like we were going to make it, but anyway, we appreciate all your work that you've done. We appreciate staff, and hope that you'll look at that project with favorable eyes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Does anybody have any further questions? Does staff have anything further?
Yes, Chair Onstad. To address your concern regarding resubmittal of the plan,
Yes.
if you wanted to modify the condition in such a way, I guess if you refer to your memo,
Right.
under the requirement section.
This is for the resubmittal of a plan? Yes.
Yes. Under condition number 26, the water offset plan, under the requirement section,
I'm trying to find it.
I have an extra one here if you like.
Go ahead. Give it to me.
Okay. Yeah.
Too much paper here. I'll come over. All right, thank you.
Under the third paragraph,
It's on page 2 of their submittal. Go ahead, sir.
that starts, the permittee shall annually submit a report to the planning division.
Right.
That second sentence that begins, if the facility's water use for the year is greater than the original water demand reported in the water offset report, comma, the permittee shall submit, if you wanted to add a comma, within 90 days, comma, a revised water offset plan and subsequent water or post-implementation water offset report. That would establish a timeline for resubmittal.
Excuse me, would the applicant have any objections to a 90-day period? No. No objection? No objection. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
How does this rest of you feel about that? Good. This is an unsuccessful plan that has to be revised 90 days to resubmit. Is that acceptable to you guys?
That's the annual
Well,
report,
they submit,
not
yeah, if
the
they don't meet
originals.
the required amount, for whatever reason, they have to submit a new plan, and they have to do that within 90 days to be approved by the planning director.
Correct. Yeah, fine with that.
Anything else?
No, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Okay, discussion amongst the commission? Oh, yes, I'm sorry. They'll get me straight yet. I'll close the public hearing and we'll hear from the commissioners. Who wants to go first?
I will. I'm pleased with the revisions, keeping the net zero in the community and in the supply where the water is coming from. And I am grateful to have the input of the water districts. So I have my questions answered and am comfortable with the revisions, and am happy to approve the project.
Ladies?
I'm going to concur with Karen. I feel very comfortable, and I appreciate the everyone coming out here today to continue to educate us, and I do feel very informed and comfortable.
Thank you, sir, for coming out and really helping us get a better feel for the issues and the very real concerns about the scarcity of water, the current drought, and where we're going in the future. I think that you brought forward some very important issues. I feel that they've been answered, and it's unfortunate that you were, pulled in two different directions. And perhaps online you can look at the hearing to hear the answer that was given by the president of the water district. Good. Anyway, general manager, that he answered your concerns. So, and thank you very much for the experts that did come out and explain to us the issues involved and how we are, not just for this project, but for others going forward, so that we have some better understanding, so that we can do our job. Thank you.
Well, you might know, I probably had to come farther than most. When I first saw the project and understood the factual background, of a water company without water, taking water from another water company that's running out of water. Very skeptical. Our supervisor from the first district engineered a well ordinance, emergency ordinance, no drilling until the basin is determined, however that's handled. I had a great deal of trouble trying to figure out how this plan would work, be implemented, and be supervised. But the more information I got from the water companies and about the plan itself, I can see where it is not that difficult to monitor getting the information from the water companies. So the burden placed on staff wouldn't be insurmountable at all. And I appreciate the continuing monitoring of the situation. I guess as a farmer, I'm alarmed, extremely alarmed regarding the water situation. I've been very concerned that our governmental entities and bodies have not taken it seriously or as seriously as they should, and devoted the resources to the development of alternate sources and the implementation of retrofitting and other things where possible. Like everyone else, I pray for rain. It would certainly been nice to have some rain the last couple of days. But I feel much better about the project. It seems odd to me that I would be approving a 64-unit project in a drought-stricken area. And I don't do that easily. I still have misgivings, but I am prepared to vote for the project. I'm sure that our staff will monitor the situation. I have some renewed confidence in the water companies and what they're doing also. And I'm also mindful of the extreme need for senior citizens to have appropriate, secure housing. So I am prepared. You've turned me around 180. At the beginning, I was not only no, but hell no. Okay? So congratulations. Anything further? You want to vote? Let's
Move to approve the revised staff recommendations, including the amended 90-day for an amended plan.
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Moved and seconded. Vote. Congratulations, you have your project.
It is, thank you. Good morning, Chair Onstop, members of the Commission. This is a proposed amendment to the non-coastal zoning ordinance, section 8111-1.2.1.1, and it pertains to permit approval standards for discretionary conditional use permits and planned development permits. And the purpose of this proposed amendment is basically administrative cleanup, and to basically institute best planning practices, if you will. And unfortunately, I don't give presentations enough, so I didn't create a PowerPoint. But if you'd like to follow along, I can walk you through. Yes.
I hope that's a thermos out there in the aisle and not a bomb.
It's a little water. Somebody left their water.
I thought everybody was happy when they got it.
Anna's going to get hazard pay today.
How's she look?
I don't see any anti.
Get out from under the business. Trying to make light of it. Chinese food, you never know.
So if you'd like to follow along, it's Exhibit 3 to the staff report is a red line showing the proposed amendments. And the first amendment is changing the words may only with shall in the first sentence of the section. And the purpose there is to clarify that if an application if the decision-making authority, that is the planning director, the planning commissioner, or the board, finds that all the standards of approval can be met, then the permit shall be granted. And so that's consistent with how we've always done it, and it's a clarification. That again, it's not a change substantively; it's just a clarification. And along those same lines, the second change is adding a subpart G to the ordinance section, which states that the proposed development is approved in accordance with the California Environmental Quality Act and all other applicable laws. And the purpose of adding that subsection is to basically close a loophole. If we're saying if an application meets all the standards, it shall be approved, then we basically need to ensure that all other laws that apply to the project, including CEQA, need to be complied with in order to approve the project. So again, a clarification. And then the third change could and probably will have a minor impact on how we do things, and that's the very last line that's proposed for addition states that if all applicable standards cannot be satisfied, specific factual findings shall be made by the decision-making authority to support that conclusion. And so this basically requires findings when a project is being denied. And your commission and the board is always very good about articulating factually the reasons why a permit can't be approved. But the change that I alluded to here would be that in a scenario where the planning division recommends approval of a project, and it doesn't happen very often, but it obviously does happen. When the planning division is recommending approval, all of the materials are set up, and so there's findings for approval. And so that's all set up, that's in the record. But then sometimes your commission or the board of supervisors will disagree and will conclude that some of the findings of approval can't be made. So basically denying the project application. And so in that scenario, in addition to having the decision maker articulate, the reasons why findings can't be made or standards can't be met, the change would be the planning division working with my office would subsequently bring back a resolution documenting the factual reasons why the findings can't be made. And so the purpose of that is twofold. One, to be even more transparent with the public and the project applicant regarding the reasons why the findings can't be made. And two, and this is where my office comes into play, if a denial decision is challenged, and they are challenged from time to time, then it's very helpful to have an actual resolution articulating the factual basis why the findings can't be made, so we can show that to a court of law. And so then the judge can say, okay, there's no doubt in my mind as to why the project was denied. And if it's a legitimate reason, which I'm assuming it will be, then it makes it a lot easier for my office to defend the decision that's made by you or the Board of Supervisors. And it's a common practice, a planning practice, to have a resolution stating the reasons why a project is being denied, if you will. And so this, it's typical. And so again, that's why I keep referring to this as cleanup, and sure that procedure will be a little bit different, but substantively it won't make much of a difference. And so in terms of CEQA analysis, it's questionable in my mind whether these changes, which I'll call administrative, even constitute a CEQA project. But if they do, they're certainly exempt from CEQA because we're not changing any of the substantive findings for approving a project, and so we're not going to have any impact on the environment. And so in conclusion, I would recommend that your Planning Commission approve the resolution, which will in turn recommend that the Board of Supervisors approve this proposed and non-coastal zoning ordinance amendment, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. No, it's legislative, so.
What precipitated this, this effort? Was there something that came up? Was there, yeah.
It's been in the back of my mind for a few years, and it has come up in a lawsuit that the county is litigating right now. And so by approving it now, we're clarifying the county's practice, and we'll also be helping the county in a lawsuit that we're involved with.
Would it help the Planning Commission to know what that is?
Yeah, it's the lawsuit arises out of the Epona wedding venue project, and so right, I'll leave it at that. It's a federal lawsuit, and it's kind of interesting that the changes that we're making, they'll help us under federal law, and hopefully I'm not boring you too much, but under federal law, when a project involves a use that could implicate someone's First Amendment rights, there's a rule that permit approval standards or denial standards can't give the decision-making authority too much discretion to deny a permit application. The rationale being that you don't want a decision maker who doesn't like protected expression to just say, oh, I don't like the project, too bad for you, and then deny it without even giving any reason. And so, under constitutional law, the courts worry that could cause projects to be denied, for either pretextual reasons or no reasons, but the true reason being someone doesn't like a church or someone's protected expression. And just to let you know, in the Epona case, we've had one hearing, and the judge disagreed with the Epona's argument that they're making that the county is somehow anti-wedding, and that's why we denied the permit. The judge didn't buy that at all, but she did point out that her concern that our ordinance, by not specifically requiring findings of denial, and by having this kind of wishy-washy may language instead of shall in terms of project approval, we could fit within the box where we're giving too much discretion to our decision makers, even though, like I said, in practice, we always articulate the reasons why we're denying, including in the Epona case. And so it's more of a kind of a theoretical problem, but it's not theoretical in that, right now we're involved in litigation where it's being challenged on that basis. So again, it's cleanup. And then outside the federal context, I've worked on one other case in particular where a permit applicant, their permit application was denied, and they're arguing that our denial was arbitrary or capricious. That's kind of the bottom line standard, and if it's arbitrary and capricious, then it's no good, a project denial. And so when I'm defending the lawsuit, again, and so that this is the Hauser, the Tiger case, there's on the record, our decision makers clearly articulated a whole laundry list of reasons why they were denied the project, but still, it's a lot more helpful to have that reduced to a resolution, and that goes a lot farther with the court when you have that in writing and you're showing it to the judge. And so these changes, make me feel a lot better legally, putting us on firmer legal ground in case our decisions are challenged.
Thank you. Move approval of the recommended actions.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Tim, we are.
Okay, thank you, Chair Onstott. I only have one other item for you, and it's next week. It's an appeal of a planning director decision where I approved a mining facility up in Ojai. A mining facility has been there for generations. It's had the same 20 truck limit. It's a hard rock, rip wrap rock is what it is, quarry. And so that decision has been appealed, so we'll be hearing that. It's the only item on the agenda. You should have already received, I believe, was that already sent out last night, Anna? Yes, so you should have already received that staff report. As far as what is on the Board of Supervisors' upcoming agenda, we have an item on their agenda for January 24th, which is the Habitat Connectivity and Wildlife Movement Corridors. That's been an assignment that we have had in the Planning Division for some time now, and the board has prioritized that project ahead of the general plan. It was part of the general plan update. I think that you've seen it there, but they've prioritized it ahead of that project, so we're working on that, and on the 24th, we're going back to the board to get some very specific direction about how they would like us to move forward with that project, and then once we do, we'll begin drafting the ordinance language if that's what the board is asking us to do, and then we would be back in front of the Planning Commission with that language. The board has asked that we complete that project by the end of this year, so depending on the scope of work that we get from the board on the 24th will be depending on when we come back. But I just wanted to let you know that project absolutely will come here if it gets approved for further work by the board. For the Mosler hearing. Yeah. We only had, I believe, 2 people that showed up at the planning director hearing. One was the appellant, and one was a recent member to the community, I think, who was just curious about it. So, and then just to report out quickly about recent actions from result of Planning Commission or board decisions. Let's see. So your commission heard an appeal, a de novo hearing on a case for a triplex demolition down at the beach, and that has been appealed to the Board of Supervisors. So that one is going. We don't have a date for that yet, but I don't believe there's been any new information presented, so we're essentially going to just schedule that for the next time we can get on the board's agenda. The board on December 6th also heard the LCA contracts in the LCA program, and all of those contracts were approved. Also on the 6th, they heard the Phase 2B for the local coastal plan updates that your commission had heard earlier, and that was with the wireless communications, the coastal trail, the enforcement and penalty process, and that was essentially approved as the Planning Commission with some minor amendments to the coastal trail portion of that. And that's all I have. I believe I have your schedules up through the beginning of March, and so we don't have anything else on the agenda right now. And then for our tasks, things that you've asked us to look at, I don't have anything pending. So if there's something that you've asked us to look at, or if there's something that you would like, or any sort of presentations that you'd like. I know that there's conversations happening between the city of Ventura, the city of Oxnard, and the county about maybe doing some joint training for planning commissioners. I know that Commissioner Cali has worked with the California County Planning Commissioners Association, and we'll be having that hearing, or it's not a hearing, but that conference is going to be in Ventura in 2018. But so if there's something, specific that you would like some training on, or anything that the planning department is working on or going on in the county, or the groundwater sustainability act, anything like that, we're happy to come. We're going to really start ramping up our schedule with the general plan. And so we can come and give you a 15 or 20-minute overview on what we're doing in that project. The background report has been prepared, and it's going through its internal review process, and then pretty soon it will go out to the public for a 30 or 45-day review, and we'll be assembling our focus groups again, our agricultural focus group, our economics focus group, all the focus groups that we had to take a look at that background report to make sure we have all of the accurate information, because that's the basis and that background information that's used to formulate a lot of policies and goals in the general plan, so we want to make sure it's accurate. So that's what's going on in the background, and there's been a lot of work by our small but mighty little general plan update team to get it to where it is. So maybe that's something that we'll put on your next agenda if we meet again in February, to give you a little update on where we're at with that. And that's all I have, if you have something for me. As far as agricultural? As far as any land use issues that we would be involved in. Yes, we will. So, those are two big things that I left off. So, one is the medical and recreational marijuana, right? So we have until January of 2018 to put forth some regulations. So yes, that is being worked on. And then also the board had some long hearings on short-term rentals. Right, and they did give us some direction on that, how they'd like us to move forward. So Jeff has been the county council that's been working on that, and so we have a meeting next week, right, where we're going to sit down and start trying to figure out where that's going to go in our list of priorities. So we have that big item as well that will come back to you. And so the board gave us some direction. So I imagine what we'll do is we'll be writing some ordinance language and bringing it here. Yes. Yes. Yeah. It will be challenging. Yeah. So, thanks.